Hey everybody, good morning from not so sunny Florida. The other day, or yesterday actually, we had about 10 inches of rain over a little bit more than a 24-hour period, and I was out at my business trying to clear a drain in a swell, and so I was in about, I don't know, maybe shin deep water. And I put on my the new helium for outdoor research rain jacket that I bought to kind of try out and see how it'd work, and the temperature was probably about 64, 65 degrees or so, and it wasn't really strenuous. I was basically just sitting there kind of moving leaves out of the way and letting some water drain out, and as the leaves accumulated I'd have to reach down and pull some more out. So it wasn't super strenuous work, but it kind of made me think about the use of rain gear on the Appalachian Trail, and I guess some of the misconceptions that I had when I first started out, and I thought maybe I would share that to help future hikers as they decide what they're going to do with rain gear, especially rain pants. It seems like that was always a big struggle. I think I've mentioned it in some of my question and answer videos where people have asked about rain pants, that it seemed like most of the pre-hike videos that I watched, people talked about the rain pants they took with them, and then their post-hike videos, they usually talked about what point they sent them home. And it made me think about, I guess, a misconception, and I think it's important to understand that when it comes to backpacking, okay, and wearing I guess rain gear when it's raining, will that keep you dry? And I think you have to understand that the answer to that is no. It's not going to keep you dry. You're putting a vapor barrier around your body, and I don't care if it's something very cheap like a Frog Togs, or something super expensive like an Arc'teryx, or a super high-tech fabric that's supposed to vent really well. It won't vent as fast as the moisture that you're producing, and you will basically sweat and get extremely wet inside. And so so why do it if you're going to get wet? Well, the answer is hypothermia management. Okay, and so your rain system, you probably best to think of it more as that final barrier against the elements, whether they be wind or rain or cold. It's part of your layering system, okay, to be able to keep warm. There was times I remember hiking in the Smokies where I would actually start out even with my 4th layer, which was my puffy jacket, which you're never supposed to hike in, but it was so cold to get started. Not only hike maybe a minute or two just to get the body started to warm up a little bit, I would stop, drop my pack, take off my rain jacket, take off my puffy, put it in, put my rain jacket back on, and because that was that wind barrier, if you will, and a heat barrier. And then as you begin to hike a little bit more, if I felt like I was starting to sweat, which you don't want to do when it's super cold out, then I would stop again, take the rain jacket off, take one of my other 2 of my base layers off, so I just have 1 base layer, and hike. And then eventually, if it got to the point where I was really getting warm, I didn't want to start sweating in that super cold, because it was 22 degrees or something like that. I would actually get to the point where if I was warm enough, I would take the rain jacket off and just hike in my smart wool t-shirt, even though it may be around freezing at that point in the day. But as long as you kept moving, you kept warm, and as soon as they would stop, boom, that rain jacket would come back on, because it was that wind barrier, that vapor barrier, and would help preserve the heat. So you don't really wear your rain gear to stop from getting wet. That's not going to happen. You can either not wear it and you're going to get wet, which sometimes in the late spring, the early summer, it actually feels very nice to have that kind of that light drizzle on you. I would not wear my rain gear, and it would actually feel pretty nice to be hiking in the rain without it. And yeah, you're getting kind of wet, but then you've got a rain jacket that's dry on the inside. So when you get to the point where you get a stopping place, you can throw your rain jacket on while you're having lunch, and it would help keep you dry. And then when you get into camp that night, first thing you do is maybe walk over to the shelter if you're at a shelter, and you know, take off your wet t-shirt, put your dry base layer on, throw your rain jacket on to stay warm. I personally never even took a pair of rain pants with me, because I had a pair of convertible pants that were heavy enough in the March and April when I started my hike, 1st of March, and then the 1st of April on my second attempt here. That was the flip-flop. But that's an individual thing, because I just happen to my legs happen to be a little more stocky and substantial and muscular, and they don't get cold. My legs just don't get cold. My feet don't get cold. Other people are different, okay? And so you kind of have to adapt that a little bit. A lot of people like to have the full rain suit, so they have something to put on when they do their laundry, because they're minimalists and they only have one pair of clothes. I tended to have 2 pairs of clothes. I had a pair of town clothes, and they sometimes also serve as sleeping wear, and then my hiking clothes. So for me, I didn't need rain pants. So I hope this discussion helps. You know, hypothermia. Honestly, you're probably not going to get hypothermic when, you know, you're out hiking and it's around freezing, because you're already kind of aware that it's cold. You've taken precautions. It's the 50 degrees, 55 degrees, and it's raining, and you know you get wet, and you start to cool off because there's a little bit of a breeze, and before you know it, you're in trouble. And that's the hardest time, because then you are going to sweat. And there were times on my flip-flop when I was in I think Pennsylvania for sure, where I knew that I was going to get more wet wearing my rain jacket than not wearing it. But the temperature combination with the wind was just right, where if I didn't have that on, I was gonna be in danger of hypothermia. Now, for me, you have to understand that's my biggest fear. If you want to know where that comes from, I'll put a link in the description below to my a slack pack that I did in Pennsylvania, and then I did the descent down the Lehigh Gap, all the rocks there. And before I did that, I tell a story about my U.S. Air Force survival school experience, where I had a bout with some extreme hypothermia, and how I nearly didn't make it out of that experience if it wasn't for some, I'll call it divine help and assistance there. So anyway, I'll put that link if you're interested in going and watching that day of my hike and hear that story. So anyway, I hope this helps. Just keep the, you know, once again, just keep it in the back of your mind that, you know, your rain gear is there to really prevent hypothermia, and not so much to keep you dry, because you're going to get wet while you're backpacking wearing rain gear. There's no way to fight it. It's going to be sweat wet versus rain wet, but it's going to be there. So, all right, everybody, 5 days until I get my stem cell injection into my ankle, and hopefully that tendon will get healed to the point where I can get back out on the trail here. Looking now maybe towards May, just because of some things that are happening in my life. Plus, if I go too early, then I'll be in those north woods with the black flies in May, which I don't want to do. So I'll be heading back up to northern New York in May to start northbound again, and hopefully get this hike finished. All right, take care, everybody. See you later. Bye.